You're standing at the kitchen counter at 6 a.m., barely awake, ripping open a granola bar without reading a single word on the wrapper. 12 grams of protein. Ancient grains. Non-GMO. Whatever that even means before your first coffee. It sounds primal, like something a caveman would nod along to. But somewhere in the frozen mountains of northern Italy, a man died 300 years ago with a completely full stomach. One of the things sitting in it was pure poison. Not by accident, either. He ate it roughly 2 hours before he was killed. So, what did he know about food that you don't? This isn't really a story about food. It's a story about survival math. What your body actually needs to keep moving. What the land around it is willing to give up. And the strange, deliberate choices ancient people made every single day just to close that gap. The honest answer breaks the one myth you've probably already absorbed without ever questioning it. Start with that man. German hikers stumbled onto him in 1991, melting straight out of a glacier in the Alps. The world just calls him Ötzi. For decades, researchers only had scraps to work with, hair samples, some colon residue, a lot of guessing. His actual stomach was hiding in plain sight. It had shifted upward inside his body during mummification, and nobody even located it until a CT scan in 2009. Then in 2018, a team led by Frank Meixner finally dug into it properly. What they found, published in the journal Current Biology, was shockingly specific. Nearly half of Ötzi's last meal was pure animal fat, sourced from ibex and red deer. He also ate einkorn wheat, one of the oldest domesticated grains around, and mixed through everything. Spores from bracken fern, a plant that's toxic, possibly even carcinogenic. Researchers think he may have used the fern to wrap his food. Or maybe he ate it deliberately, as medicine, against intestinal parasites already living in his gut. Either way, this wasn't some random snack grabbed on the trail. It was a calculated, high-fat meal, built for a brutal climb at altitude, and eaten shortly before somebody put an arrow in his back. For the record, Ötzi also had hardened arteries, arthritis, and a case of Lyme disease. Not exactly the glowing picture of primal health his diet gets sold as on your feed today. Here's the thing. That meal sounds like solid proof of the caveman diet myth you already know. Just meat, just fat, done. That idea got fully branded in the early 2000s, when exercise scientist Lauren Cordain turned it into the modern paleo diet. Same basic pitch every keto influencer in your feed still leans on. And other evidence seems to back it up too. In 2019, researchers led by Clairvia Jouen tested nitrogen isotopes pulled from Neanderthal bone collagen. Published in NAS, the numbers were completely off the charts, matching top predators like lions and wolves. On paper, Neanderthals looked like hypercarnivores, eating almost nothing but meat, week after week. You'd assume that settles it, right? Turns out, that's only half the story. And it's the half that made the myth stick so hard in the first place. Bone collagen only measures protein. It says nothing about everything else a person actually put in their mouth. Kind of like judging your entire week by one item on a receipt. Let's talk about their teeth instead. In 2011, researcher Amanda Henry and her team studied dental calculus, hardened plaque, scraped from Neanderthal skeletons at Shanidar Cave in Iraq and Spy Cave in Belgium. Published in NAS, their results uncovered microfossils trapped in that plaque for tens of thousands of years. Starch grains from date palms, legumes, and wild grass seeds. Here's the genuinely wild part. Some of those starch grains showed clear damage, a chemical signature that only forms when food is cooked. Neanderthals weren't just ripping into raw mammoth like some Ice Age action movie you're picturing right now. They were gathering plants and heating them over fire, long before most people assumed cooking was even a normal human habit. That detail alone should have ended the all-meat myth on its own. Now here's the complication. Diet wasn't even consistent from one Neanderthal to the next. In 2017, Laura Wyrick's team sequenced ancient DNA pulled straight out of dental plaque, published in the journal Nature. One Neanderthal, from Spy in Belgium, had clearly been eating rhinoceros and wild sheep. Pure carnivore energy, no apologies. But another individual, from El Sidrón in Spain, had a mouthful of pine nuts, moss, and mushrooms. Barely any meat at all. Same species. Roughly the same era. Completely different menus, purely because of what the local landscape happened to offer that season. Basically the Ice Age version of a Texas barbecue guy and a strict Californian vegan somehow being close cousins. And that El Sidrón individual had a dental abscess and a gut infection on top of it. Exactly the kind of week nobody wants, ancient or otherwise. So he'd been chewing poplar bark, a natural source of salicylic acid, the same compound behind modern aspirin. Traces of a mold related to penicillin turned up too. He was medicating himself with whatever happened to be growing nearby, with zero pharmacy in sight, and it seems to have worked well enough that he kept doing it. So pause for a second, the way you would mid-scroll on something that doesn't add up. Two members of the exact same species, living in the same rough era, eating almost opposite diets, purely because of geography. So what happened when the food ran out completely? In any location. What did people actually lean on to survive those gaps? The honest answer is weirder than you'd expect. And it isn't buried in a fossil somewhere. It's still happening right now, in real time, on the other side of the planet from you. Anthropologist Catherine Milton spent years comparing documented hunter-gatherer groups worldwide. She published her findings in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2000. Her conclusion was blunt. There was no single blueprint, no matter how badly you'd want one for your own meal plan. Some groups leaned heavily on wild plants. Others, especially at high latitudes with almost nothing green growing, survived mostly on animal fat and meat. Simply because that was what existed. Geography decided the menu. Every time, whether anyone liked it or not. And nowhere is that improvising more obvious than with the Hadza of Tanzania. They're one of the last groups on Earth who still forage for most of their daily food. Anthropologist Alyssa Crittenden has spent years studying them. In 2014, she co-authored a study in the Journal of Human Evolution on one surprising discovery: honey. Wild honey can make up around 15% of total Hadza calories. Picture the effort involved. Hadza men climb enormous baobab trees for it. They take repeated stings and smoke out furious bees, all just to reach a single hive. Why take that risk at all? Because honey is almost pure sugar, the single densest calorie source anywhere in their environment. It's the ancient version of you reaching for the vending machine at 3 p.m. Except the vending machine fights back. Researchers now think this exact strategy, chasing whatever food gives the biggest energy return, meat, tubers, fat, or honey, depending on the season, might be the same one that helped fuel bigger human brains, generation after generation. In other words, there was never one single ancient human diet you could copy from an app. Researchers who study hominin evolution keep circling the same idea: dietary flexibility. Not a fixed menu, but the ability to shift, fast, between meat, starch, fat, and sugar, depending entirely on the season and the landscape sitting right in front of you. Titsy's fatty alpine meal, built for one specific climb. The Neanderthal eating rhino in cold, wet Belgium. The one in Spain surviving on pine nuts, self-medicating with tree bark. The Hadza risking bee stings for honey today, thousands of years later, on a completely different continent. Different foods, wildly different centuries. Same underlying skill, reading the environment, fast, and adapting to whatever it happened to be offering that particular week. So drop back into your kitchen. That granola bar isn't primal because of ancient grains printed on the label. It's primal because you're doing exactly what they all did, grabbing the densest, easiest calories available to you right now, without thinking twice. The same way you'll grab whatever's fastest on the way out the door tomorrow. Ibex fat, rendering over a fire. Raw honeycomb, still buzzing, pried straight out of a baobab tree. A pinch of bitter pine nuts pressed into an aching, infected gum. None of it looked like a wellness label. All of it worked. For exactly the body eating it. In exactly that place. So here's a question worth sitting with. If you had to survive on nothing but what's within walking distance of your house this week, what would you actually eat? Drop your honest answer in the comments below. Titsy picked ibex fat and toxic fern. You've got a granola bar. Same strategy. Better packaging.